night stories about betrayal and clarity, about sitting front row to a show you didn't buy tickets for, but somehow you're the only one who sees it unfold. So, let me tell you what happened. Most of the time, when someone cheats, you don't get the behind-the-scenes drama. You hear whispers, maybe see a few signs, but me? I had a front row seat. Center stage. My ex was in the army, deployment was coming up in a few months, we'd already broken up, that as the date crept closer we started talking again. Just casually at first, then the calls got longer, the emails warmer, the chats flirtier, it felt like we were dating again. Not officially, but emotionally, yeah, we were back in it. This went on for months. Then the day of his deployment arrived. I stopped by the house he shared with his mom. We were on semi-good terms, so I left a small gift and a note on the porch. She wasn't home, but I did notice a new car in the driveway. Nothing unusual, they always had renters. A couple days later, I got a letter from his mom. She was furious, accused me of trying to stir up trouble for her son and his new wife. That's how I found out. Through a nasty handwritten letter. She even called me a name I won't repeat here for sleeping with her son before marriage. The irony? She had a shotgun wedding herself, 6 months pregnant with my ex when she walked down the aisle. I had no idea he was seeing someone, let alone engaged, let alone married. So I decided, if they didn't know what he'd been doing, they should. I printed everything. Every message, every email, every text, every call log. I remembered that car in the driveway, drove by again. It was still there, but this time, something new. On the back window, written in white paint, just married. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Turns out his new wife was living at his mom's house. Perfect. Now his mom would have to live in the chaos she helped create. I didn't have the wife's full name, but I had an address. So I mailed the truth, letter by letter. The first one was for her. I laid it all out. Everything he'd been doing behind her back. And I included all the receipts. Every last one. The second letter was for his lovely mother. I told her that during all the time I was talking to her son, not once did he happen to mention a wife. Not once. I reminded her of her own wedding, since she seemed to have a selective memory. I ended the letter by letting her know his wife now had a full account of what her son had been up to. Have fun with that. I sent both letters with required signatures, just to be sure they'd open them right away. The last message I sent was to my ex. Just one line in an email. It said, "You're dead to me." I wanted him to sweat, to wonder what I knew and what I was going to do. Now, this was back before email security got tighter, and I still had access to his account. He'd used my laptop before, left the door wide open. Over the next day or so, I logged in, checked his emails. Sure enough, his wife had received the letter. She tore into him. I'd given her everything. Details, evidence, phone records. Apparently, while they were on their honeymoon, he left the room to go get ice. And during that time, he called me. That's when I saw the email from his mom. She was ripping him a new one too. Pissed that she now had to deal with his mess under her own roof. She said his wife had been crying for days, beside herself after learning what he'd done. And since he was already deployed, there was nothing he could do but sit with it. I watched him real time as he scrambled, email after email, trying to explain himself, trying to fix it. This went on for months, him trying to make it better. It was glorious. Chef's kiss. I don't know if they got divorced, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. Just goes to show what happens when you play silly games. You might just walk away with some silly prizes. When I was younger, I was mean and angry, not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be. My dad used to beat me, and I got beat up at school a lot. Those things, they make you wise up real fast. And at school, you couldn't show weakness, not even a little, because if you did, you get beaten worse, bullied harder. So part of me just functioned autopilot. I'd do bad things sometimes, not because I wanted to, but because I felt I had to. And thinking back, yeah, it was messed up, but it's part of my story now. I'm gay, but nobody knew. Not back then, not my friends, not my family, especially not my family. They're extreme Catholics, the kind that would disown you for even thinking differently. My dad, He used to say how much he hated gay people, and I believed if he ever found out about me, he'd hate me too. He'd be ashamed. So I kept it quiet, buried deep. I ended up having sex for the first time at 14. It was with a man who worked at my high school. Yeah, I know, it was wrong and messed up. I don't want to go into detail. That part isn't the point. What matters is what came after. Some kid in my grade snatched my phone, read my texts. He found out I was gay, and for months he bullied me, teased me, shouted out loud when people were around. Even when I begged him to stop. I tried to explain, told him about my parents, how dangerous it could be. But instead, he started blackmailing me. Said he'd tell my parents if I didn't do exactly what he wanted. He made me give him my Xbox 360, my Nintendo Wii, my DS, took all my video games, even my Bullfrog. I had to keep giving him money, do his homework. Whenever he wanted something, he'd use that secret to control me. He made my life a living hell, and it wasn't just stuff. He made me say horrible things to people. Things that made them cry, made them hate me. I think the worst thing he made me do was ask out some poor girl just to humiliate her and me. That was a chapter, a dark one, but it's mine, and I've lived past it. She wasn't the most popular girl, and she wasn't the most attractive, but she was kind, quiet, and undeserving of what happened. His whole plot culminated in me kissing her, then dumping her, right there, in front of everyone. I did everything that kid told me to do, because I was scared, terrified, scared of my dad finding out, scared of what it would mean, scared of what it cost me. I deleted all my socials, smashed my phone, because he kept contacting me, even outside of school, and every message made things worse. I felt trapped, like I couldn't tell anyone, couldn't ask for help. He had this one thing, this secret, and it felt like he'd hold it against me for the rest of my life. There was a time I thought about ending it because of him, but then I snapped. One that would make sure I'd never have to see him again. I asked the man I'd been seeing to give me $800, and I met with a friend's brother, someone who had a connection to a dealer. I bought what I could. Coke, knives, and I planted them in that boy's bag. I left an anonymous tip, told the counselor I thought he'd brought weapons to school. They searched his bag, found everything. He was expelled, just like that. And since I had no socials, no phone, he couldn't reach me. I heard he got placed in some kind of program for kids who'd gone too far. Later, I found out his house was searched. His dad was involved with drugs, so when he said he didn't know where the stuff came from, they didn't believe him. They saw his dad, made their judgment, and me? I didn't feel a shred of guilt. Not then, not for a long time. They were the most ruthless thing I've ever done, but it worked. I thought he was an idiot for testing me so much, pushing, prodding, like he wanted to see how far I'd bend before I broke. And the moment I found out he was expelled, it felt like 1,000 elephants were lifted off my back. I could breathe again. For the first time in years. I mellowed out, became kinder, softer, and yeah, I feel a bit bad for what I did. Looking back, I'm sure there was a better way, a smarter way. But at the time, I couldn't think of one. I was desperate. Desperate to keep my secret from my family. All my friends stopped talking to him after he was expelled, and my parents, they still don't know. Not about that, not about me. Maybe one day I'll find the courage to tell them. But that's for another time. I've moved away now, from my hometown, from my family, and although life isn't perfect, I'm glad. Glad I've moved past such a terrible time. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to the guy who blackmailed me, turns out, as an adult, he went to prison for hurting someone in a way I won't describe here. So no, I don't feel as bad as I otherwise might have. Some stories don't end neatly, but they do end, and sometimes that's enough. I recently turned 30, and since then, some things have started to stir. Skeletons from the past. I'm realizing now, I'm still deeply affected by them. Still haunted. Even now. And honestly, I just wanted to share this with someone. When I was 11, I was one of the happiest kids you could meet. Goofy, cocky, naughty. I had friends. Had all these little playgirl friendships with the girls in my class. I was bubbling with life, confidence, living in the suburbs of Melbourne, Australia. Just me and my single dad. Just before 6th grade, my dad met a woman. Her name was Diane. She was also a single parent, but her kids were much older than me. 3 boys, between 22 and 35, and an 18-year-old daughter. After just a few months, my dad broke the news. We were leaving Melbourne, moving in with Diane, to a small rural town. At that age, I didn't really understand what it meant, but I went along with it. No protest, no questions. We moved to a town called Kyalong, in Victoria. Maybe 1,000 people live there. My new school, 50 kids total. My first day was loud, chaotic. I caused the first fight in the school's history, 3 hours in. Why? Because someone suggested I pick a fight. No reason, just impulse, just wild energy. Soon after we moved in, Diane let her youngest son Peter move in with us. Peter was 22. Lifted weights, an absolute monster. My dad was 55. And even though my dad had bought the house with the sale of our old home, Poulter claimed it as his own. He began bullying my dad, intimidating him. Little things at first. Peter would change the locks in my dad's tool shed, so only he could get in. He'd play with my basketball in the backyard and kick it, hard, across the acre of paddock behind us, into the overgrown grass, just so I couldn't find it. Peter would push me over, trip me, anytime I tried to stand up to him, and then he started beating up my dad. Not metaphorically and not emotionally. I mean, he beat my father to a bloody pulp, right in front of me. Peter's temper was a hair trigger. Anything could set him off. Sometimes my dad would flinch, react, push back just a little, and then it would be on, anytime, day or night, until his nose was broken, until chunks of hair were missing from his scalp. One night, my dad slept in my room, just to get away, just to hide. Around midnight, Peter barged in, with his older brother, while we were sleeping, and they beat him, together. Sometimes, I'd run to the neighbor's house, beg them to let me in, to call the police. Other times, I just stood there, frozen, afraid. I only lived there for a year or two, but it felt like forever. After school, on weekends, I'd pass the time by breaking into houses, whole streets of them, not to steal, just to walk around, to be somewhere else, anywhere else. I had no friends, no outlet, no one to talk to. I miss Melbourne so much. I miss the brightness, the laughter, the feeling of being alive. That town, it felt like a prison, made of dirt roads and silence. I felt isolated, like I'd been ripped from everything that made me happy. I yearned to go back to the place where I had friends who loved me, where everything felt normal, where I could feel normal. Like I said, this all unfolded over about 2 years, but the impact, it stretched across my entire teenage life. I was withdrawn, shy, and embarrassed, pretty much all throughout high school. It took me until my 20s to come back out again, to resemble something like the kid I used to be. The one who laughed easily, who felt safe, who felt seen. And this might be a story for another time, but all throughout that period for my entire life, I was also dealing with an alcoholic mother. I'd only see her on weekends, but those weekends, they left marks. She was hurting, and her pain devastated me. She took her own life. At least, that's what I believe. It happened when I turned 17. I've never forgiven Peter or Diane. I'm haunted by them. Sometimes I imagine what I'd say if I could pay them a visit. Let them know exactly what they put me through. I'd tell Diane just how horrible of a human being she is, and I'd tell Peter and her brother that I'm not 12 anymore. I've been lifting some weights of my own. Sometimes I still feel trapped in that house. Even now, I've never felt closure, never felt resolution. No justice, no peace. and it's hung over me for all these years. I don't know how to answer it. I don't know how to forget it. I don't even remember Diane or Peter's last name. Sometimes I think that's God's way of keeping me from doing something I might regret. Some stories don't end. They echo, and sometimes we just learn how to live by the echo. When I was 14, a freshman in high school, I was already at the bottom of the social ladder. A little chubby, not the most athletic because of a disability, and generally labelled as a loser. I didn't have many friends, and that made me a target, especially in gym class. PE was mandatory, and changing in front of everyone in the locker room was part of the humiliation. A gym teacher wouldn't let me use a bathroom stall, so every day felt like a public ritual in being degraded. The girls in my class, they took pleasure in it. They'd snicker at my body, whisper cruel things, sometimes they'd just point and laugh. But the teasing wasn't even the worst part. They'd go through my gym bag when I wasn't looking, take my things, toss my clothes around. Sometimes they'd steal. If I zipped it up, they'd unzip it. If I hid it, they'd find it. It was like a game, a daily challenge to ruin my day. And then they started taking my makeup. That was the breaking point. I wore makeup because it made me feel better. After sweating through gym or mincing off in the showers, I'd reapply a little before heading to class. It was my way of holding on to some dignity. A mask to face the cruelty with a little softness. But they'd steal it constantly. Foundation, mascara, powder, everything. They'd laugh while passing it around, smudging it, dipping their fingers into the bottles. It was disgusting. And once they touched it, I couldn't bring myself to use it again. My parents didn't have much money, and after replacing my makeup a few times, they stopped. My mom thought I was being careless. My dad just said, toughen up. They wouldn't call the school, wouldn't try to stock it, and I had no recourse. Because if I told, I'd be a snitch. So I stayed quiet and carried it alone. The teacher who stood in that locker room every day and did nothing. She could have given me a locker, a safe place, somewhere to keep my things. But those were saved for her favorites. I tried hiding my stuff, different compartments, corners of my bag, but they'd tear it open anyway. It was always going to be a losing battle. Every single day, I'd watch them laugh as they used my makeup right in front of me. It was deliberate. They wanted me to see it. And I don't think it was about the makeup. It was about control. Then one day, after another round of taunting and stolen things, I sat in the bathroom, staring at what was laid in my makeup bag. The open foundation bottle, the mascara wand, still sticky from their use. I felt tiny, powerless. It was obvious no one cared. Not the teacher, not my classmates, not my parents. That's when I had an idea. A disgusting, vengeful idea. Born from rage and humiliation. My dad has severe stomach problems. It's not an exaggeration. His condition could have killed him. He's in and out of the bathroom multiple times a day. It's awful, but that night, his misfortune became my opportunity. When he finished in the bathroom, I went in. With a plastic spoon, I scooped a small bit of toilet water into my foundation bottle. Just enough to mix in, not enough to make it obvious. I shook it gently. Then I took the mascara wand and rubbed it deep into the sink drain, picks up the grimy buildup that collects there. For a finishing touch, I took the powder puff and wiped it across the one part of my dog no one should ever touch. I sealed everything back up, cleaned the bottles, made them look normal. Packed my bag for the next day. I didn't sleep much that night. It was the anticipation that kept me awake. The next morning, I went to school, pretended everything was normal. Gym class came, and sure enough, they didn't disappoint. They went through my bag, like always, laughing, calling me names, picking up the bottles they thought were theirs to use. And I watched as they did it. I stood there, pretending to be my usual upset self, while they dabbed their foundation onto their faces. Water from my dad's toilet blended perfectly into their skin. They ran the mascara wand through their lashes, coating them with the filth from my sink. They dusted powder across their cheeks with the puff I'd customized. To this day, I don't know how I didn't burst out laughing. They admired themselves in the mirror, flipping their hair, giggling how cute they looked. And I just stood there, silent, watching my version of justice unfold. I never told anyone, not a word. But I heard later one of them got a nasty eye infection. A couple others started complaining about rashes. I kept my mouth shut, went on with my days like nothing had happened. That was the day I stopped bringing makeup to school. I decided to ting as being barefaced. It was better than letting them win again. Looking back now, it's disturbing what desperation can make a person do. I was 14, trapped, humiliated, invisible. No one helped me, so I found a way to help myself, even if it was twisted. It's been years since then, and even now, I don't wear much makeup, but every once in a while when I pick up a brush or a bottle, I think back to that day, to the power I felt, watching my bullies unknowingly use what they thought made them beautiful, turned right against them. And no, I don't regret it, not for a single second.